the best country fair around. It's known, of course, to all of you as the Cummington Fair. But the organization which runs it, do you know the name of that? It's the Hilltown Agricultural Association. And when I first moved here and was raising sheep and showing sheep and really taking part in the fair every year, the Hilltown Agricultural Association was an incredibly responsible and conservative body. When I moved here, so now we're talking 1979, when I moved here, the association didn't have fire insurance. And I asked why. He said, just doesn't make sense to pay good money. Is that bad money? Just doesn't make sense to pay good money for something you work all year to prevent. Okay. Instead, they had over $1 million in the bank. And this was a little country fair 45 years ago. There was a lot of money. And this $1 million or more was enough to rebuild the show barns, livestock barns, the exhibit, and the dining hall. Tips our waitress only pay, read a hand-lettered sign in the men's room of the dining hall back in the day. Enough to rebuild the show barns, the exhibit hall and the dining hall and the midway booths, enough to rebuild them twice. You let it burn down 3 times, you don't deserve to be running a fair, was their reason. $1 million, man, accrued over 156 years, a dime and a dollar at a time. And every dollar and every dime that departed were mourned with true regret. And I used to help them set up for the fair, and they didn't leave the fuses in the box all year round because vandals, burglars might steal the fuses. So they put in new ones, and they were those old copper ones, and Stud Stevens, the electrician, had a supply of new copper pens in case we blew any fuses. Now that's insurance. And we are humble proud of the fair. But there was this one particular year that I want to get to, when I went to the fair and there was more on my mind than the fair. In 2004, now we were having a fake war, just completely made up out of our own animosity and pretenses. A fake war with Iraq that killed 500,000 real people. So I went to the fair and it just got to me. Being in a crowd, all the people, all my fellow citizens milling about eating corn dogs without a care that reached our fellow humans under the same sun and under attack across an ocean. I was frustrated. I wanted to shout in the ears, I wanted to whisper in the souls, I wanted to pour my heart into the heart of my fellow citizens. I wanted to make the great beast of an elephant amongst nations, the great beast of America move. Well, I got near the pulling contest. Dan Clark could tell you all about it. I'll give you the short version. There are these very rugged sleds, like stone boats, sleds loaded with concrete barrier blocks, sort of things, and I think each one weighs 500 pounds, and they keep loading them up. The teams, always a pair, pull, and when they measure who goes the furthest until finally it's so heavy no team can pull it. The oxen pull on Saturday and the horses on Sunday. Now, in old days, before there was the Ox Teamsters Challenge, which Nan and Murray invented.
Murray started it, and I was with him the whole time.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful thing, and it does not involve strength or the sort of competition that weighs and measures. These very American things, it does not quite embody. It embodies something else about America, which is some people love animals. Some people are in touch with their animals, and the skill and the teamwork is something to see. But in the old days, they didn't have the Ox Teamsters Challenge. They just had the pulling contest. And not all, but I've seen it, and it's true. Some Teamsters in the pulling contest used to whip their prize steers with their thick hides and a deep complacency to make them pull better, they thought. Well, that's why they did it, but I wanted to make the great beast of America move, not two oxen. And I got very upset. And man, I wanted to lash until I sweat and drew blood. Now I knew I should. I did. But I needed the great beast of the American people to feel. Well, okay. We've been to the country fairs, and we know that those teamsters who whip the most don't win. And we've seen the whole fairgrounds gaudy and littered and sticky. We've seen the whole fairgrounds stop to witness the fear of a small man beside his great patient beasts. A small man, his fear large as the anger that never comes back again from the ox. The anger like a shadow that is cast, the anger that is lithe as the lash and quick as the snake's slit tongue. And I, speaking, was just as split between this anger and this towering calm. Well then, some years of these contests, some years, whether by the luck of the draw or for a lesson, an old man who knows the team is the three of them, not the two. A briar-bearded old man with a slouch hat who whistles low, shrill like the whip, who speaks without word or even voice. He moves without fear or force. He holds out an apple, and off they go. Someone once asked me if that was a portrait of God. Yep. Well, that's part of the fair. That's only part of the fair. That's part of the fair at the fight, flight, greed, fear, and compassion level. But lighten up, preacher. Lighten up. The fair's about harvest, too. Got prizes for the biggest pumpkin, the prettiest garden basket, the poppingest flowers, arts and crafts, brief personal detour. The first year that my wife Connie, who is a master potter, lived here, she decided, I'm going to get all civic and enter something at the fair in the arts contest. So she brought down one of her pots, and they threw it out because she was a professional. And who did win? Someone who bought a little ceramic gnome and painted it. A red hat and a green jacket. And these gnomes never seem to have pants. I don't, but anyway, red hat, green jacket. Anyway, I don't know what lesson she took from that, but anyway. And what else? They have prizes. Used to have the best bale of hay. Now, bales always look lost and dusty. Hay is plural. It's part of a windrow, a wagon load, a barn full. But there, these one bale sitting there and has a blue ribbon, so that's a good thing. And there seems to be sort of part of the business of the fair is to realize we have a harvest to evaluate, celebrate, and luxuriate. Speaking of which, it's the feast of fried food. If it only were annual, I think your doctor would be happier, but many of us indulge more often than that. But don't worry about your doctor. You may see her at the fair. The best exhibit at the fair, it's the people. Not even close. Chain-smoking carnies, 4-H khakis and whites, once a year chance to talk with your neighbor who lives next door. Kids in edgy heaven daring each other to brave a wilder ride. Now, someone told me recently that they like the fair so much better now that there's no beer. As a former exhibitor and judge of livestock there, I kept my big mouth shut and didn't tell them what goes on up at the livestock trailers. But the fair, it's our solstice. It's kind of an equinox 6 months apart from blizzards and mud season. We're as far away from blizzards as we're going to get. And tomorrow, when the fair's closed, we'll be one day closer. Now, our fair is half the year away from New Orleans, but this is our Mardi Gras. People having a ball, not before Lent, before winter. I got all into the fair, and it made me think of a quote I have shared with you before from Thomas Hardy. The business of the poet is to show the sorriness of the grandest things, and the grandeur underlying the sorriest things. So, the fair. The big wheel turning. David, of course, King David was a poet, and the Psalms so often know how these wheels turn, as Kathy's scripture suggested. Psalm 30 says that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. 126 says that those who now sow their bags of seeds, those who now sow in tears sow with tears, sow tears, will reap with songs of thanksgiving. Those who weep as they go out carrying their bags of seed will come back singing with joy, carrying the harvest in their hands. Now, this is Fair Week. There's a whole lot else that has happened. And I must say a brief word about politics and feeling for so long in the wilderness, needing America to move. Well, take a deep breath, neighbors. We are downwind of Chicago. And that patience feels to me finally rewarded. That prairie breeze is very sweet in these Hilltown lungs. And there's hope. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.